I came in 1947, 1,300 miles. And me and two little boys, JC and Marshall.
I know my parents was excited about the church being started.
I remember we went to a Bible study at the Burt Martin home. We were on the front porch, and I had never heard the story of baby Moses. By that time I was already married, and we didn't have any children, and I was beginning to want a child. And when I heard that story of baby Moses and how his mother had to put him in a basket and put him in the river, it just, I can't describe what that story meant to me.
And now they're scattered all over the United States, I guess.
We were just happy and close to the Lord, and we felt that whatever He wanted to do, we'd just let Him do it.
The First Evangelical Covenant Church of Vero Beach began its official ministry on the evening of December 10, 1941, at the home of Mr. and Mrs. Arthur Carlsworth. In truth, the church began long before that date, in the hearts of a mission-minded group of local citizens and a dedicated young minister named Oscar E. Osterberg.
Well, it was wonderful the way the Lord called him. He was just an ordinary young person, born in a sod house in the prairies of South Dakota. And he wasn't strong physically. He had a weak chest, subject to colds. And so he had to, he wanted to be the Lord's work. He wanted to do the Lord's work.
Pastor Osterberg and his wife Ruth were a constant and tireless source of encouragement and inspiration during those early days of the First Covenant Church. Those years saw this little body of Christ grow to 70 members, with over 125 attending Sunday school. During those days, they met anywhere they could, an old restaurant, the local high school or community building. At one point, the entire church was meeting in the Osterberg's parsonage. Most of this time, however, was spent at the vacant home of Mr. and Mrs. Arthur Carlsworth, a home that over the years would come to be lovingly called the Country Sunday School.
And I remember when we were out in the country at the little, what we call the Country Sunday School, when we'd start to go out there, Osterbergs would have their car, we'd have our car, and everybody else had a car, and it would be packed full of little kids. I mean, literally packed. Then there were no seat belts. They didn't have to sit tied up. And they would, some be hanging out the window. They would be singing. We would sing choruses from the time we left until we got there, and while we were there and when we got back.
We had Wednesday night prayer meetings in homes all over. We just scattered all over wherever they wanted us. And we carried that with us for every service. And we used everybody. The young folks were used, and they were so happy.
The first chapel, on the site where the current facility now stands, was a real blessing as it brought the country and city Sunday schools together for the first time. In the years since, a young pastor and his wife first led a brief evening of devotion on the porch of a rural Vero Beach home. The First Covenant Church of Vero Beach has touched countless lives for the cause of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Today, that ministry continues, still bulging out of an expanded facility on that same, although somewhat busier, corner lot in Vero Beach. The ministry has been passed on through pastors and generations, but the mission remains the same as Reverend Osterberg first stated in 1941. Let us work with tireless effort, that there may be a harvest for God's kingdom.